Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Under the Pallet Wrap. This week we're focused on SMEs, small growing businesses. Those businesses you started because it was great fun and it was your life. And maybe now it's starting to feel like a burden. It's starting to get a little bit hard and it feels like maybe the operation is breaking. So today we're going to talk about why does that happen? How do you know that you're at that point, and what should you do about it? Keith, what do you think? What do you think are the normal signs that people start to see that says you need to do something, or your business is gonna maybe start to fall apart?
Well, certainly, as you mentioned, like it's always hard work running a business, a small business, getting it off the ground. But maybe what felt like positive energy, positive excitement, now just feels like constant stress, and you're involved in absolutely everything as a
Yeah,
leader or a founder. You're maybe it used to be like a bit like a discovery task. You know, oh, I've got to call customs, I've got to call my supplier, but then it becomes your entire life. Every single task has your name on it. And you know, you're spending all your time, instead of all the things you love, like your product, the product itself, and meeting potential new clients, you're actually spent on the phone talking to customer service at DHL, or you're scratching your head over why simple things can't happen, recruitment, interviews, chasing invoices, and it all becomes a bit of a slog.
yeah,
And it's hard to understand sometimes when that first happens, but it's the sort of thing that creeps up on you. Um, Ownership is something that's very important to you, maybe at the beginning, and it's your baby, but somewhere along the line, you're paralysed by the amount of decisions you've got to make.
yeah. I think one of the things you said is very. I'm sure will resonate with people, and that's you know every founder expects it to be hard, right? Everybody expects that they're going to commit their life to it for a few years or for a period. Um, and I think that's fine when it is the things that excite you. But I think one of the telltale signs that a founder or a small business has reached a point where it probably needs to think a bit differently is that founder or that leader is spending all that time, and and I don't think any founder would say I didn't expect to, but they're realizing, but they're no longer focusing on the things that they love doing, and they're stuck in operations and solving, getting packages out of customs, or explaining why to customers why things have gone wrong, or just recognizing that the service that they're giving isn't what it used to be. And you can see around you everybody's working very hard, and that can feel like a difficult place to be, because there's the things like I can't get anyone to do any more. I can't work any harder. Why is this? What do I need to do? And quite often the natural thing to do is just employ more people, bring more people in. But I think we both know that that's not always the right thing to do. And I guess you don't always just see it as I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes it is just, that errors are creeping in. You're seeing more customer complaints, or deliveries are going out a bit late, or the operation always looks a bit of a mess. That proud facility or operation that you have kind of looks like it's run ragged. Or I guess things just get bumpy, that you just don't seem to get the flow of information between people in the same way. And all these things are a telltale sign that your business is either grown in scale, or it's diversified and got more complicated. Yet the process that you set up, or the way that you started things, is no longer serving you. Right? That good processes when you start won't always be good processes, because as things change and multiply and diversify, suddenly those processes become burdens, right? And that you can't let go of.
It becomes harder to instill a level of quality control the busier you
Yeah,
get. So
yeah,
things that are very important to you, you might not have time to pop into the warehouse. You set up what you consider your guidelines for packaging, as an example, 2 years prior. I want ribbons, I want this, I want that. but you can't work out where your money's going, and you go down into the warehouse and you think, well, they're still using this packaging, but why am I getting such high shipping costs? Why are customers complaining about the presentation? Um, you might only be focusing on the symptoms here, like, oh, rather than the causes, which is a lack of visibility, lack of cohesion, all the things we spoke about, things that have changed, things that are no longer valid, focusing all your efforts on things that mean a lot to you, but you don't understand them particularly. So it can get really difficult and confusing.
Mm.
You cannot work out why you can't get that package in perfect condition to a customer, and why it's costing you so much to do so. So I'm not saying that blame sets in all the time. You know, I mean, a lot of founders are absolutely in it with their team. You know, they're down at the pit face, 100% believe in their team. But blame can set in. We talked about it in previous episodes. Silos kick in while your priorities start switching by the minute, and you keep trying new things, and you haven't communicated what you're doing to the other team, and then there becomes sometimes a conflict of interest, and things just don't happen as they used to happen.
No, no.
I used to sit with my core team, and we knew what we were doing, and off we go. It doesn't work anymore. Why is that? Maybe I haven't got as good people anymore. It's just natural thinking, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not necessarily right. It's just
No, and I think, one of the difficulties when when it's your business and you've created it from nothing. I think everything is so intrinsically natural to you as a founder, that everything you see, you can see an answer to, and you understand in depth what is going on, etc. And quite often there's this kind of assumption that the people around you also know that, but and this is not a criticism of founders. It's what makes them successful and what makes them survive those early years. But there's this point where there has to be a realization is that nobody around me makes any of the decisions. Whenever there's anything, it's always me that makes that decision. And I guess there can be a moment where you kind of see that as either irritating. It's like, why does nobody make any decisions around here? And normally the reality is because over a period of time, it has become the norm for the founder to make them. So everybody sits back and waits because they don't want to go over that founder's head and make the decision, get it wrong, and then end up losing their job for messing up. So they don't, they wait. And therefore the pressure just continues to ramp up on a founder.
and the resentment, the anger, the
And
irritation.
it becomes a really difficult scenario. And then the other one, of course, is that um, the employees that are working for that founder, they just don't know the business as holistically, as in depth. It's not created by them, and particularly where there's this, this common founder scenario where they've got their arms around this business. It means everything to them, so they're always there. That means that you've never shared that insight and that knowledge with the people around you. So actually, they can't make those decisions because they just don't know, because you've never let it go. And it sounds like we're being critical, but we're not, because I think as you grow up in a business, it has to be like that. But as your business grows, it has to start to dissipate outwards. Otherwise, it just becomes this huge burden. And I know you've met many founders like this. I've met many founders like this. Some see it and some are just, please help me, or I think I know where I need to go with it. Others are just so in it that they actually don't see. They see some of the problems and, as you say, the symptoms, but they don't really recognize that actually part of the problem is them. Is their passion and their knowledge is actually becoming a blocker, and driving many of the other problems that they see.
Well, we're both business owners ourselves, so do you recognise any interest in you? There's stuff we don't like doing. I remember the pain of building my website. It's only a simple website, but it's just not something I personally enjoyed doing. But at the beginning, you're not blessed with all the funds in the world, are you? It's
No,
just,
no,
you end up doing it because you need to drive the momentum at your own pace. So it's
yeah,
not always easy to understand when
it's
to
not.
turn to
It's
a
not, do you
specialist.
know what I don't like doing? Bloody admin. Look, I got receipts everywhere
Yeah.
on my desk.
Ah, yeah.
They
So
keep looking
much
at
of
me every day, and
building
I
a
don't do anything
business.
with them. But
Yeah, some things seem like it seemed like fun at the beginning for sure. Like, I think people who start their own businesses have that healthy fear, that healthy ability to challenge themselves. So they will do things they're uncomfortable doing. And they thrive on that. And, things like networking and outreach and stuff, which is not always my favourite task. I challenge myself to do it.
yeah,
The problem occurs when it becomes 50% of your waking hours. And we all get to that stage where it's like, well, what can I do to outsource? The problem is when you've attempted to do that and it's appealing. I think the key is when do you start realising, when is the first glimmer that this is getting out of hand?
yeah. I guess it can raise its head in a number of different ways, right? There are lots of KPIs and measurements that will say you've got a problem, but I think that when a founder really feels it is when suddenly they are starting to feel really tired and they're not as motivated, or they don't get so excited about going in, or they realize they don't spend enough time in their business on the things they love.
Yeah.
That's that you're
Whereas
firefighting.
I think what you said resonated with me. The fact that they used to want to be in every day. That's what motivated them. Everything was pushing it forward. But now they have to be. I never forget a founder I once knew who was waking up to the alarm at 4 o'clock every morning to push a report through every day because that's how it was. I mean, obviously, what needed to happen was it needed to be automated, but he didn't have the time and the bandwidth. And one of the reasons he actually stepped away, he decided that I don't want to run this. He was the co-founder, and it's just that was the breaking point. I can't keep doing this. We didn't need to, but the problem was he didn't know who else could do it and how because he didn't trust anyone to wake up. He didn't trust anyone to check it at that time in the morning, and he didn't have time to come up with an alternative process. So
Well, that's also a part of the big problem, isn't it? That you don't have the
yeah,
headspace to evaluate rationally what should I do now? Because if you are in that constant state of firefighting, driving, deadlines and trying to keep the wheels on, how can you possibly spend any time, really quality time looking at what you're doing and whether there's a better way?
yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're getting calls from salespeople. I mean, that's part of the noise. You're getting so many sales emails and calls around that time with people doing their job but telling you that their platform is what you need. And of course, you know that something is what you need, but you also get bogged down with all these things. Like, what? Maybe I do need to change my systems. Maybe I do need to start bringing people in. Maybe I do need to spend some money, but you don't know how, and you don't know what's a reasonable amount of money to spend, and you don't know how to put this into place.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the reason is because you haven't had the time to identify the true problems in the business. So, if only I had a new automated system. A lot of people have been through that process. If only this whole thing was done by a machine and not by me or
Yeah.
by these people I have to supervise. So you can fall down that trap of absolutely questioning what you've got and being tempted to believe that the only solution is to replace it all. Um, and I've seen small businesses investing in some platforms that are way above their needs.
Yeah.
They don't have time to train on them or
Yeah. And I think there's probably two main paths, or three probably paths. One is do nothing and keep struggling, and eventually either you will break or your business will break, one of the two, and that becomes a really serious problem to then try to overcome. I think the second one is you think, yeah, I just need better systems, better, so you spend a fortune bringing in a more sophisticated version of what you already have because it's for a bigger business and you can grow into it. And no doubt, if you haven't done the earlier bit of really understanding what's going on, that won't help you. It'll only make things harder and a lot more expensive. And then the third one, of course, is resource. Get people in, bring in leader. And again, this one is always difficult because I think at that point you realize you don't need just more bodies. You need a leader, you need experience. So it's an expensive hire. Are they really going to be able to, how long is it going to take them to learn my business? Will they be able to balance being in the dirt as well as being, looking at direction? So bringing in, let's call it a director level person, ops director or whatever, is a really big decision for a small business, right? It could be the equivalent of 4 or maybe even 5 other employees, you know, and that person won't be directly driving revenue either. So it's just a cost initially. And that's a tough decision for a founder mate, and you can understand why it gets kicked down the road, right? Because it's like, I don't want to spend 100 grand a year on that. What if it doesn't work? Then I'm gonna have to spend God knows how much trying to get rid of them again. And so you can
Well, there's a
understand
tendency.
the resistance to that process, right?
Yeah, there's a tendency to think that because someone's experienced, they've got that magic wand, that they're going to come in and transform everything. But they're still fighting the same blockers that an employee is. Uh, they still can't make decisions. They still don't have the budget. It's the same budget as before, probably less because they've got to pay for your wage. Um, it can be frustrating for an experienced director to come in
Yeah.
and not really have any means of doing much apart from the basic groundwork.
And of course, if what is needed is a deep analysis of what's going on and the outcome of that, so an ops director come in and could probably do that. But when you're employed by that founder, it's your job, your livelihood. Going to that founder and saying, do you know what? The core reason for this is you're the problem. When you're employed by that person, it's your job. That's a very difficult conversation to have, to say, okay, I've worked it out. We can fix this if you just get out of the way.
Yeah.
How do you tell a founder that when you're employed by them, right? That's a bloody hard conversation to have and come out of it in a positive way. It's not impossible. I mean,
Oh,
they
yeah,
probably
it can be
know it at a
difficult.
certain level, but it's a brave thing to do as an ops director, to go to your boss and say the problem is you.
Yeah, well, if you're used to being very senior, being a decision maker, it can be extremely challenging not being able to make decisions. And if you do, you're seen as in opposition to the success of the business sometimes.
Yeah,
Um, Also, I think there's a tendency for people to think, oh, seniority equals what we need. Someone who come in, grab the bull by the horns, and change my business. But often what you need is an analyst or someone to take their time, have a proper look at every department from end to end, not just ops. Ops could be the smallest problem you have. The
it's kind of
reality of it.
it's not quite often the most obvious, but it's normally the it's where the outcomes of your problems are seen, but it's not always the source of your problems, right? It's where you can
Yeah.
see them all because it's the action, it's the activity, it's the physical, it's what's leaving your business, but it's not always actually the root of the problem. Yeah, I think that's a really really important point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And often the problem at startups is that there is no interconnection. So the most urgent task is to connect the dots. If you've only got an ops background primarily, you're not always going to walk in and see these dots, these patterns. So it's not your fault. You come in, of course you can manage your business at scale. Of course you can scale their operation. But that's not the problem in the business at that moment.
Yeah.
It's lack of communication, lack of processes. There's different skill sets to manage operations at scale um, than diagnosing business process issues at source. And Yeah, I've seen it happen where it's always like, I just can't find people that are good enough. They don't understand the business. They don't understand what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
something, well, that's because you haven't found what is actually prohibiting you.
yeah. What is the root of your, where are the problems really generating from? And I think your point about your traditional operator, right? Traditional operators are people guy. They're people who motivate and inspire and drive. They don't want to sit at their desk looking at numbers, right? But the reality is, a modern ops leader needs to be both. They need to be able to not necessarily do all the detailed analysis, but they need to be able to interpret what is comes out of an analysis. But it isn't. You can't just be that anymore. The old school, and they were great fun, and they were always great fun people to be around. Normally outside of work when they weren't kicking your ass, but they were great personalities, right? But I don't think you can run a business on personality these days. You
I
need
don't
to be
think these
able to get
people
behind it.
would likely thrive when they realise that their warehouse is the back of the shop and their operations team is made up of two people. Uh, that can often be it's a different skill set to motivate these people and understand how to build an operation from there. Yes, the fun stuff comes in time when that team grows, but there are people that are required to have just as much fun uncovering issues and unblocking the pathway to building a team. And yeah, when you're looking for a particular skill set or job title, that can you don't always find what you're looking for. Shall we say,
Yeah,
with this type of unconventional operation. Every e-commerce business has an element of operations, but I think I've seen a lot of people who've taken more senior roles with titles, more senior titles at a smaller business, and then just it's just not for me because it's no less work, it's different work.
and we're in business. We run our own businesses to help companies to not have to do that, right? And so we would always advocate for a slightly different approach, which is less expensive, certainly a lot less committing, and yeah, and can happen quickly. And I think both of us would. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Keith, but I know the business you run, so I'm pretty sure that you would advocate that the first thing people need to do, and we've said it in episodes before, is bring somebody in to just take a look, have a fresh pair of eyes, just to get under the hood and write down and what we call value stream mapping, which is basically a big brown piece of paper on the wall, and you just map your business from one end to the other as to what happens, and you start to highlight where the breaking points are. And that
Yeah,
can be
what is everyone
so
actually
enlightening,
doing and
right?
why? Yeah, what are you
It's a
doing and
few
why?
days' work for somebody, and somebody like us who are experienced in doing that, we can come in a few days and we can suddenly have this map and all these hotspots of where your challenges are. And maybe at the end of that 2 or 3 days, you go, you don't need an ops director. You just need some short term support to correct some of these things. And then you know what? You've got the capability to go another couple of years without really adding that to that cost. And I think it's that whenever founders are in that place, before making a long term decision, make a short term decision of getting somebody who's not in your business, who's not completely blinkered by what you do every day, but is experienced in seeing businesses and recognizing challenges within businesses, and bring in that freelance short term consulting expertise, which doesn't cost that much, but can be very enlightening very quickly.
I think I don't know if you ever thought this when you were brought in as an ops director. I think I did sometimes. You always had it in your mind that I'd like to make my wage back as quick as possible. That was always my gauge. I'd like to save the business my wage in my first 3 months or 6 months or whatever, because that the target is very much it's sort of more based on that. But it's very hard to do that in certain situations.
And
If
quickly.
you're going in with that approach. If you're going in with a more neutral approach, with a target of providing clarity to build a strategy, your mindset immediately shifts outside of your operations tunnel, and you start looking at every element of the business and how you're performing in every which way and where it's falling down. But you're not influenced by anyone.
No.
You're not. I don't want to say tainted. You're just not. Yeah, you know, you're not. Do you notice often as well? You go in when you talk to people. You get people going to the regular meetings every week, and they're just. It happens everywhere, but you're showing your snippet, your snippet of the picture with often no justification, and people fall into a pattern as to how ops do it. Well, we did this, we did that, we did that. And you almost breathe a sigh of relief, and you go back to your job. Let me get on with my job.
Yeah, they didn't ask me any difficult questions today. They
Yeah,
didn't see.
thank
They didn't
God. I
see that
didn't need
issue
to.
that was
I
there.
didn't
But it wasn't
notice
obvious.
that. But you know, it's easy to fall in that trap for want of an easy life. You just want to get on with your job. But when you go in more as a fractional person or as looking at value in a business, you don't need to. You're not in that cycle. You just
Yeah.
come in
Well,
with a complete fresh angle and say, "Well, this is what I see
yeah.
based on the facts."
And you will see, and I've heard this. You know, when you're talking to companies about coming in to do this, there is a sense that sometimes they think, oh, yeah, but you're always going to find problems because you're just trying to get me to employ you for another 6 months sorting my problems out. And I think, you know, how do you overcome that challenge of, you know, I mean, sometimes you can't, but you know, when people are thinking, oh, you're just trying to find problems so I can keep you here for a few more months.
Well,
How do you respond to that?
my angle is always I'm here to build capability, not just tell you what's wrong. My goal is always to drive value. If you don't get the
Yeah,
value, then I haven't done my job.
yeah,
The way it tends to work is you break it down into a phased approach, and the first thing you deliver is the clarity. That tends to um, that tends to be an absolute massive first step for any founder. Oh my God, I didn't realise, I didn't understand. That makes sense to me now. You've almost acted like a mirror to me, and you've told maybe I wasn't right. Um, and you've highlighted the order in which things should be done. That clarity is almost the biggest saving they could ever make. And once I provided the clarity, they tend to be able to work in more manageable phases,
and I think this
must-haves, and
is.
then yeah.
I think this is one of the key things because it's easy to go in, do a 3 day study or a week study, and then say, right, here's all the challenges, and look, we can fix all of this. Um, where I think that you know say, look, there's lots of things here. This would feel like one of the urgent ones, and actually, it's quite quick. So let me prove my worth to you, and we'll overcome that in the next 4 weeks. Right? Give me 4 weeks of doing a certain amount of time, and we'll overcome that, and that will already have paid for what I do. So I can show you that, yeah, I'm not just good at pointing out the issues. I can take them away for you. I can fix them. I can, you know,
I'll
realign them.
get your team to
And
fix
that
them.
continued adding value, you know,
Yeah.
because it's very easy to go in and say, right, if you give me in 12 months' time, I'll have it fixed, but you need to pay for me for 12 months. That's a huge thing to ask somebody to do.
Oh,
But if you can say,
absolutely.
look, I can periodically, we will add value. You will see the benefit as we go along. Then founders are more likely to say, okay. And if they don't see it, you're out, right? I mean, that's the beauty of
Yeah,
this kind of
because it's
setup
yeah.
is
Like
that
you
if
don't
we
want me
don't
for the
do,
next phase. That's
if,
okay.
if we
If you
don't
want
do
me
what we
later
say we're
down the
going to
line,
do, out.
yeah, much more transparent, much more obviously of value. Also, if I'm bringing the team along from beginning to end, when you see the team building capability in front of your eyes, that can be such a relief for the founder. Like, oh,
Yeah,
they really are a capable team. Yes, they just didn't have the opportunity. If you start building their capability and allowing them to take on the tasks and managing them, because as a consultant, the worst thing I could do would just come with a copy and paste solution and walk away. It's about
yeah,
bringing the team on board so that they can do the job instead of the founder. There's no point me saying this is what you need to do. Bye. but you're still doing it. A big
and
element of this is to bring the team on board.
and that is also another very strong message to a founder, a CEO, leader of a business, that the person you've brought in is doing the right thing. If they're kind of building up the capability of the team you have, rather than just making themselves invaluable to you so you can never get rid of them. As soon as you
Dependency
start to see
on
that
a
with a
consultant is,
consultant, you need to get rid of them, because if they're just trying to make themselves invaluable to you, then they're just trying to milk you for everything you've got. Any kind of short-term fractional consultant type kind of contractor for you should constantly be building up the capability of the people in your team rather than yourself. Now, with a longer term fractional relationship, because you've got consulting, which tends to be short term, end to end fixing. You've got a clear project. Outside of that, you can also make the decision that you're going to use what we would call a fractional director, which tends to be longer term. Doesn't have to be, can still be project based. But you recognize, I do need help. I don't need 40 hours a week of it. 2 days a week, a day a week of their experience and direction is enough to give my team the clarity for them to move forward. And then, of course, you do then start to become reliant on that person, because when you put a longer term fractional person in place, the intention is that they are a permanent part of your business.
yeah, I mean, it can work in many ways. You could bring someone in on a fractional basis 2, 3 days a week to find, while you transition from one place to another. Then you might
Yeah.
end up employing them full time, but you've employed them on a trial basis
Or you might end up
for the
continuing to
amount of
employ them
time you need
fractionally,
them.
right? You might
Yeah,
realize you
and actually
don't
grow.
need full time. Potentially, the outcome may be you need a full time ops director. It might be one of the
Yeah,
answer that you come to. But I think what we're really kind of trying to say is you need to just do a piece of work with a fresh pair of eyes, with somebody who's experienced in looking at this stuff, to say, this is your business, here's where your challenges are. And then when you get to that point, then you can start talking about, what are your options on solutions? Is it you need a new system? Is it you need some new resource? Is it you just need some fractional expertise? You know, is it that actually you just need to change some of your responsibilities, and actually you've got all the people you need? If we realign a little bit, you're absolutely fine. I think so. You got to be careful. You don't jump to the solution before you really know what the problem is.
oh, that can be a worse problem. Yeah, a worse problem to have. You just got a very expensive system that no one knows how
That
to
solves nothing.
use, and that element of resentment because it didn't solve all your problems as you thought it might. You just got another albatross
It's
on
just
your
even
neck.
more expensive now.
So, the clarity leads you to stop having to react all the time. And if someone's neutrally building that for you, they're not bogged down with the general priorities and quirks of the business, shall we say. They're actually able to just get on with it, work with the teams as they need to, link them all together, build the critical path, build the communication channels. It's a very satisfying thing to do.
It is.
Um,
It
Not
is.
everybody's comfortable taking a background seat as well. I think there's a certain person that drifts to consultancy or fractional work because they like the supply chain to work. It's not necessarily about individual targets, it's about business targets.
It's one of those things where you've got your consultant, your freelance or fractional decision making right, when that's the sense that you get from people. When you get a sense that they're always just trying to add another few months to their contract, good contractors, good consultants, good fractional leaders are comfortable with doing what they need to do and walking away. And they're
Yeah,
always
it's the
excited
goal.
about going on to something new, right? So, if you've got a consultant who's desperately trying to hang on and find more work from you, there's nothing wrong with encouraging you that here's some other things that we could also do. But if it's being an overplayed, the focus seems to be on how they can extend their contract more than the value they can bring. You've got the wrong person,
Oh, unrealistic
and that's
targets as well
yeah, that's
sometimes.
that's
And
the reality.
yeah, if the target's always unreachable, there's always need for you. I would much rather help the business achieve realistic goals and targets and visibly see success and possibilities emerge in front of them. I don't like to keep the carrot dangling on a stick.
And an easy test or a simple test for a founder or a leader to make an assessment as to whether their consultant or their contractor is still needed and required and doing the right thing is, are you still having a slightly adversarial relationship with them? Because if you're not ever disagreeing or not fighting or they're not challenging you on anything, then they've almost become that employee, that ops director who doesn't want to upset you because they don't want to get pushed out. So, the one thing you can say about a consultant who's there to add value or a fractional guy who's there to add value is they will be more than happy to keep telling you you're wrong, you're doing this wrong. You need to look at this. That's one of the key values I think of a good contractor is that they're willing to tell you the things that your employees won't tell you because they don't have that fear of losing the job, right? Because
No, they
they're
believe
here
in
to make a change. If they can't make a
yeah,
change, they're going to lose a job anyway. So,
the
and we
commitment
generally have
is
more than one thing going on at one time. So if this one stops, that's
yeah.
fine because I'm working on other things. So I think as a founder, if you've got these type of people in your operation, and they're not upsetting you or they're not irritating you in some way or
Yeah,
challenging you in some
yeah, not
way,
making you
then they've
question what you're
become
doing.
they've become that
Yeah,
ops director who's more worried about his job than he is the future of your business.
I've
And then
seen it happen.
that's wrong.
I've gone in as a consultant and seen teams of yes men ultimately for various reasons. Some, as you say, um, earning the money has become to get good money for not particularly large operations. So it's easier to say yes. Um,
It is.
It's not. It's a responsibility building a startup, but it's not for everybody. As we said before, it does involve a different skill set. You do need to push hard. You do need to find solutions. It's no
Yeah.
good sitting on 100 orders 3 years down the line. You need to find avenues. You need to use all your skills. Complacency does sit in, and if the founder has lost that ability to receive these messages and it's still all in their head, then yeah, that often happens. Um, bring someone in with fresh eyes, they don't have a loyalty to anyone but the business, what they're employed to do, which is to bring value to the business.
Yeah.
If you've done a really good job, there's absolutely, the founder will keep turning to you to do the next difficult project, but not the same one, not for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, make a difference.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the startup, the difference isn't necessarily as obvious
No.
as it might be to
No.
the bottom line. You have to show the founder what is truly blocking their business. And that's not always easy to do. My view is you can measure anything if you really want to. You find a way to measure something. But yeah, it's a different mindset, and sometimes it's about slowing down as well. Asking the founder to just slow down, do the simple things,
Reflect. Yeah.
unlock the bigger things.
I guess the takeaways for me first is you need help when it stopped being fun and it's starting to feel like this is a slog and I don't wake up in the morning, jump out of bed and can't wait to get down there and start working. You know that your dream business is overwhelming you and it's time to do something about it. So I think that's one. Um, and then don't jump to a solution. Find somebody that can really take a good, quick look and help you understand what's underneath all of these challenges that you're facing. Then you can make a decision.
Yeah, lean on the expertise that's out there and who thrives on making
Yeah,
these things work. They thrive on ensuring your business is a success, not just themselves.
yeah,
Um, there's lots of us out there who absolutely love making things happen. So
yeah.
yeah,
And also remember that this happens to most businesses. There are very few businesses that don't go through these stages where their the performance has started to fall apart, or they get every business needs to evolve and re-evolve and
Oh
transform
yeah, even
through
the
the
biggest.
phases. It's really, really normal. See that wood for the trees. Give yourself that moment of reflection to say, okay, this has started to get out of hand. We need to understand this so we can make some good decisions. What you tend to find is they've kind of, I need help. This is not working, and there tends to be a reaction. You jump to a conclusion, and it's not necessarily the right one. So when you feel that need for something to change, get someone to look at it before you make that decision. Don't assume just because it's your baby and this business inside and out that you'll make the right decision because it's your business. And use some good value external expertise to help you quickly understand what's underneath it, and therefore the potentially very pivotal decision on the future of your business, will be made with a good grounding of data and information and visibility and clarity. I think is what you've said, and I think
Yeah,
that's the
build your
great
network,
advice to take away.
make that call, send that message, and just chat. As a first step, just chat. Get an opinion of someone who's seen it a few times.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Great. Well, interesting discussion, Keith. I think, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. Please do share your comments about how you feel about it. If we've touched a nerve, feel free to reach out and ask about a bit. If you want a bit more information, we're definitely open to supporting companies, or guiding you towards the right people that can support you. Please do like our post. Please do subscribe to our discussions. Under the Pallet Wrap is out every Thursday, and we look forward to hearing from more and more of you about what you think and what you'd like us to discuss. But for now, thanks a lot.
See you next week.